Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Millennials Are Killing Capitalism Live. This one, are just pulling off on very short notice. Alejandro Villalpando, who many of you know, we've had him on show, podcast side, video side, a few different times. Reached out to me last night and said, "Hey, do you want to do something about the fires today in LA area?" And I said, "Sure." So that was the start of the conversation. And then Mel Lopez, who's also been a part of study groups and a friend of the show as well, who's also out there and has been directly impacted, as I'm sure she'll talk about today, um, you know, saw that we were doing it and reached out. And so we're going to have a few folks on to have conversation. I mean, maybe somebody else will even join. I know I see folks in Southern California area that are in the chat. And we know lots of folks out there that organize and do good work. And I'll just make a note. Mel sent me a list of different resources. So if you are in the LA area and you are looking for resources, we put some different links in the show description of places that you can check out and refer to for resources. So anyway, I just start there, and I'm gonna go ahead and welcome Alex and Mel to the show. Peace, comrades. It's good to be with you both. Yeah, we'll get into it. Mel, do you want to start us off and just kind of share, however you kind of want to start in terms of your own experience with this and the impact that it's having? And I know we're going to talk about some different things. We're going to talk about obviously the context, the different mutual aid organizing that's going on, and some of the different things going on in the city and the state level. I'm sure, but yeah, let's just start by giving folks some perspective of what it's like out there right now.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on and for having this show. I think it's like really, really important. And just my heart goes out to everybody in similar situations. So I live in Altadena, which is a suburb here in Los Angeles County. And I apologize. The temporary place I'm staying at has like construction going on. So if you hear that in the background. Um, so yeah, I mean, I can only say that I'm still like really in a state of shock, and I understand trauma because I'm a therapist, but it's Tuesday night. Well, I'll start with Tuesday morning. The power company sent out a message that we're going to have these hurricane like winds and they were going to turn off the power possibly in 4 hours. And that was in the morning, like 7, 8 a.m. They never turned off the power. The winds got stronger and stronger throughout the day. And then about, I want to say my timeline may be a little bit off because it all seems like a big blur, but somewhere between like 5 and 6, I heard that there was an Eaton Canyon fire, and Eaton Canyon is in Altadena/Pasadena. And I immediately like just felt so much dread because even though those of us who live in the foothills like get fire like sometimes warnings all the time, it's always it's just like it's usually like, oh, okay, they're gonna contain it within the canyon, but the winds were so bad. And I still was in a little bit level of denial. I was like, it'll be fine. But then maybe an hour or so later, it was fast. I got a warning saying like, like start preparing. And it's I have to say I've been through a lot of like, traumatic stuff, and it was hard to just start like throwing things in your car um and I was trying to talk to neighbors. The one thing that I want to like really make sure that people understand is that many of my neighbors, myself included, we did not see a single firefighter. We saw a couple trucks. I saw a couple trucks going up my street, which is Lake. It's the main street. And I think that's important for people to know because people need to know how little resources there are. And like I'm pissed. Like I feel so mad. I feel like, our mayor like should have shame. Like there should be accountability because like they defunded the fire department to increase funding for the police. And most of my neighbors, like in even all the community groups in Altadena, are saying we never saw one firefighter. And I'm not saying that they weren't there, and I'm not. This is not a diss on any fire like people, but like that's a lot of us to never see a firefighter on our streets. And so it's understandable that everything's gone. Um, so, I was fortunate I was able to get out with my pets. The warning got issued. I was able to get out with my pets. I think there was a lot of confusion. Some people were not getting alerts. And this is where I said this on my Instagram. I've always said this, but if community is all we have, and like some of us, like if we hadn't been checking on each other, some people wouldn't have known. Because some people just come home and they're like doing their thing. And, I had texted one of my neighbors and he was like, I didn't even know there was a fire. And I was just like, and so thankfully there's, my community, a lot of people know each other and we were checking on each other, we were calling each other. But this is what I mean. Like you have to get out there and talk to people. You don't have to be best friends with people, but like, fuck, excuse my language, like say hello to people, like because that saved lives in my community. Like it's just this like some of my friends did not get alerts, and that is scary to me. Like they could have like not made it out. We have people, I think as of right now 5 people have died. And so yeah, and so luckily I have a friend who took us in. The next day I went to try and get in, or to try and assess. Cops have everything blocked off. um but just from the point where I was able to drive, I could see some of the buildings just at the very beginning of Altadena completely burned down, and it's shocking. Like it's shocking. Like it's a very beautiful community. It's a very diverse community, and to see everything just burn down, it's really hard. Like yesterday, I tried to go up again. It was again blocked. And I looked up one of the streets that I was able to look up from where I was. It's a street where two of my friends live on. The entire street's gone. The entire street's like down to the ground. And I don't, I tell people this is like the level of just devastation. It's like on the one hand, it's like your own personal loss, and then on the one hand, it's like everybody who you love and care about and the community. Like it's hurting. And I said this on a post, I think yesterday on my Instagram. I said, we also have to remember, like, yeah, there's some privileged people in Altadena, but there's also a lot of BIPOC folks who aren't so privileged. There's a lot of working class folks. The thing that has been frustrating, I'm a renter, and so far all of the resources have been for homeowners, and it's like homeowner this, homeowner that, and that makes sense. But it's like it feels like a class issue because it's like, all right, there's all of these resources coming out for homeowners, but like I'm a renter. What the hell do we do? And many people in my community don't have renters insurance, and like there's just all these different levels. And so I'm going to try to go up there again today and see if I can see my place. What I've been told so far is that it's most likely gone. I haven't been able to put eyes on it because they won't let us up. um but everything, a friend sent a picture and like of our street, and her house is gone. There's two houses that I was able to see from the picture that are standing, so it's not very likely the place that I was renting is there. So that's some of my experience.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I'd just say, I mentioned this to you before, but I grew up in an area. I grew up in Southern Oregon. My parents still live there, and it is an area where wildfires were always a reality, and it just would kind of get worse and worse every year with climate change, honestly. And it but it is one thing. It's like I did live in the woods, basically, and in the woods, like, we're more conditioned to kind of accept that, oh, there'll be forest fires and whatnot. And but it's kind of, feel like we've entered into a different phase, not just with this, but with a lot of the fires over the last, decade, where you start to see whole towns, whole subdivisions, whole neighborhoods just disappear, right? Just be destroyed by fires. And there was one, the Almeida fire, up a few years ago in Southern Oregon, that took out Talent, Oregon, and I believe part of Phoenix and some other areas. And um, the devastation of it, I'll show some pictures in a minute. I mean, it was just incredible because it was just like basically an entire town being wiped off the map. And you don't think of forest fires or wildfires, right? Having that kind of scale. But unfortunately, it's becoming more and more of a problem. And it's like happening in January feels particularly weird too, kind of just crazy. But at the same time, the winds have been crazy out here too. I mean, I'm in the Philly area. I mean, the winds I think are going wild all around, probably all around the world right now. Um, and the air is very dry in the winter, right? So it's like that's the other, there's not a lot of moisture. So, yeah, I mean, anyways, my heart just goes out to you and to all of the people. And I know I'm glad that we're gonna connect folks with different places that they can support as well. And yeah, Alex, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. First, thank you, Jared and Mel. Thank you for sharing your story, with us and whoever's on here listening and will listen later on. Like, I mean, this is that's the beginning, right? Like that's a piece of what so many people in the city are going through, right? Especially on the north side. Um, I don't even know really where to start. Like, I'm on the south side, like, so for people who've seen me before, or just know me, like, I'm a South Central resident. I'm always going to be representing this part. And so that comes with certain kind of views, literally vantage points to seeing um this stuff emerged. Right on Tuesday, I was driving my dad to the doctor on the west side, and this is like like near the beach, like Playa del Rey for people that don't know. And I see this huge cloud of smoke, and I'm over here like, what the fuck? We in Chernobyl and shit, making some random ass fucking thought. And I tell my dad, I wonder if something exploded over there. That looks way up. He's like, oh, it looks like it was by Santa Monica. And I was just like, I don't know. And so I get into the doctor's office and I see, and it's this Palisades fire. And a lot of times I think, I was talking to a friend this morning, and actually they are in Asheville, North Carolina. So they're still seeing the devastation from Helene, which was unprecedented for that area. And so he was asking what's going on, and he's lived here, so he kind of knew. And these are dear family friends of ours. And so I was kind of recapping some things, and he was just saying, he's like, here it was pockets by the river, like that are gone. He's like, but what I'm seeing outside of here in LA, it's like it's entire communities, as Mel is describing, like, and major historic communities that dot the north side, like, and that is just that is a that is something, right? So the LA basin, right, is like a bowl. South Central, Compton, Watts, and all these areas are where a lot of this stuff settles down in the valleys, like San Gabriel Valley going to the east. So the 10 freeway, right, is cuts across. South Central also lies, Compton and Southeast LA lies on the jet path, right? And so one of the longer term things that I've been really worried about, my kid has asthma. Respiratory illnesses are disproportionately found in our communities, right? And to Mel's point of the lack of coherent, consistent, and accessible information that is accurate in the city is really messed up and has some deep fucking immediate impacts on the people out here. So yesterday I was more on the north, and my partner was out here, and she's just saying that there's a lot of people walking around without masks, which makes sense, right? Like, we've spent about 2 years demonizing, pathologizing mask usage, right? And now people are walking with their children out in this community, barefaced, right? And so they don't even know, right? Like, so people can be like, oh, I can't believe people aren't masking. First of all, the county was reaching out to mutual aid groups for masks. Not the county, like, specifically, but people who work for the mayor's office were looking for masks that they couldn't get from the fucking city. Like, there's no bottled water for unhoused neighbors. There's no, like, potable water access in our community. These fools are out here, like, coughing up a storm. And the third part that really worries me I think, and it's one thing that the propaganda and the militarization, the militarized response here, because of that contradiction that Mel pointed out, the budgeting here, right? Like defunded the fire departments to the tune of 58. I think the number is 58 people that were no longer on the force, I guess. Right. I was trying to reread that article right now, but everything is so difficult, like to focus longer term besides like what is happening and what mutual aid needs what and kind of seeing those things. But um yeah, it's just a lot of shit. It's a shitstorm, it's a firestorm. It is very real. And at the same time, right, what my friend said in Asheville was that you see the worst of humanity and you see the best of humanity during this,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And that shit is real.
Yes.
That shit is life changing for people who have not been involved in kind of whatever, like earth shattering, earth shaking events. And that's not just natural disasters. And I say in quotation mark, I'm not some fucking conspiracy theorist that thinks that the Ukrainian war is the cause of this or whatever the fuck, like I guess the Ukrainian war started the fires or some shit or fucking DEI initiatives, right? Like the fire is diverse or some shit, right? Like I don't fucking know what is going on, right? But what I will say is that this all feels really like strange and ominous, and it's because we don't know, right? Like we don't know and we haven't seen this. So um people are asking me like, well, what's gonna happen? And I'm like, I don't know, like I
Yeah.
don't know how things are going to be rebuilt and no one is ready for that. What I do know is this though, and this is what I don't want to lose track of. And I'm so grateful and honored to be on the show with Mel. We just got a chance to meet Mel recently at an event that we did, and we were talking exactly about this. So I don't want to lose this point. Is that, and in the point we were talking about, like my partner and I, right? We're part of this book, We Grow the World Together. It's on parenting towards abolition. And we were talking about the essential nature of care work and really grief work, right? And so one thing that you see is that it is very difficult, and it's understandable why people's like emotions are. I mean, it's a physiological response. You can't control that. We have to know how to navigate that kind of stuff if we want to build power and build like sustainable networks and efforts that are here to build power and not just to respond to tragedies. And I
Yes.
think what is inspiring right now in this moment amongst the comrades and the people that are joining these efforts right now is that there is those openings again. And so we need to learn how to talk to people again, how to organize people, how to be with people, how to not talk at people, right? Like we need to like do those things and learn how to be in community to attend to the shit that's actually happening to people, to let people know, look, in a revolutionary upheaval, right? If we get to a society or societies or worlds that we want, right, or that we need, that are full of dignity and justice and access to life, right, versus what we have now, if we get to that place, it is going to be through an exhibition, right, of systematized care and life making and making space for the extent of what it means to be a human fucking being, right? Like ultimately.
Yeah.
And that is
Absolutely.
what like unites us now. So I'll shut up now, like, but those are some things that I want to get off, like right now, because it's all just fluid.
No, and I agree, Alex. I think it's like, I talk about this with clients, I talk about this on Instagram. Like, we need to, like, just like purge ourselves of all the internalized capitalism and individualism and all of that bullshit, because it's killing us. It's been killing us. It's harming us. And like, I tell people, we're not going to fight a revolution. You're not going to fight a revolution with your partner. Like, you need everybody. And, it's just like, this is the kind of thing that happens, and it's just like, and we need to learn how to like move through conflict. We need to like let go of our fucking egos. It's just like, even on the left, quote unquote, like it's just this like no, we need to learn how to have like just basic communications. Like, I was at Target yesterday, like buying, like it's such a freakish thing. Like, I'm like, oh, I need to buy socks and I need to buy chapstick because everything's gone. And this woman, like noticed, me, and we started talking, and I told her what happened, and immediately this perfect stranger just hugged me. And it's just this like was just like, I am so sorry. And we immediately exchanged phone numbers. And she was like, I'm connected to this person who runs this like org who's getting together hygiene kits. She's like, I will hook you up and let me know. And that right there, like that's what we need. Like it's just this like, it's not like, oh my gosh, like, in that moment, this perfect stranger. And I'm calling people out because it's just like, as there's a lot of hella cool people like activating immediately. That's like all over the place. Like, it's like neighborhoods, even in my own neighborhood that's broken down. I was telling a neighbor this morning, or my friend this morning, that I was like, even though people have lost their houses, they're like trying to get some goats evacuated and save this pig that was there that got left. It's just like, but there's all the, as usual, there's the thoughts and prayers people. And I'm like, I'm a deeply spiritual person. Yes, I welcome good vibes and prayers, but that shit's not going to do anything right now. Like donate money. If you don't have money, go volunteer. Like the Pasadena Convention Center is looking for health workers, volunteers. They need Spanish translators, they need Mandarin translators. Like, do something. Like, you can even offer up your shower. I posted about this morning, for your friends. You don't even have, it doesn't even have to be strangers, but maybe just people, like, like the gyms are offering free showers. But there's so many people impacted all over Los Angeles. And so my challenge to everybody is find something to do right now. Like, it's just this like, it's just this like help, there's like, there's something that we all can do. We're all going to show up differently, but we all can do something. And thoughts and prayers isn't going to cut it.
No, appreciated. Alex, do you want to talk about some of the different mutual aid projects that you're aware of and that are going on right now?
Yeah, I think Mel brought up a really great point. Is like I want to say that for those of us that don't live in the directly impacted areas, what can we collect? What can we gather? Like I'll give an example. I gave we had clothes, right? We have some kids' clothes. Our kids growing rapidly, so we know that those gently used, right? Like try to get some
Yes.
clothes. We didn't like overwhelm the place that we dropped it off, and I'll share that in a bit with the mutual aid groups. We had like my dad be getting a gang of socks, so then that fool gives me a gang of socks, like that everybody gives old men socks, and I'm getting to that age where I'm getting socks, so I be having a gang of new socks. So I just put a bunch of socks in the thing, because that was one of the requirements, right? Like that was one of the asks. My kid, my partner, sweaters, like anything that we thought could bring some joy. I gave away some of my Dodger stuff, some of my Lakers stuff. Maybe it'll bring a smile to someone.
Yes.
And I should say, may sound corny, but I know I've been in some shit, and like little shit really like matters. It'll push you, it'll give you momentum, right? Like some stranger did this and was thoughtful, and that's how I try to move out, right, with that stuff. But the mutual aid groups that are, what happens here, and I imagine in every other city, right? Like major mobilizations, everyone's kind of indirectly connected. And then, links start being sent and people start talking on these group chats, and then things start happening, right? Like, and you start to see like, bah, I have this, I have that, I have that. And then you start to see what happened right now is that a bunch of people that are not necessarily organized or have experience organizing jumped in on these things and are getting activated, right? Like are getting active, and also some of them getting activated, right? But people are saying don't bring politics in this, and then this is political as shit, right? Like, and
Yes.
it's those moments where you have to build. You don't fucking just say, to someone who says, I'm fucking, let's not make it political, let's just help people right now. You don't fucking say like, this is fucking political. It's like, dog, we are gonna help, and this is political, right? Like and right? Like that's some basic I just shared with a friend. And versus but, become improvers, right? Don't fucking close the door on people. Not in these moments, right? You can parse shit out later, like this is immediate. And then we build power, right? So one of the groups working with unhoused folks here is K-Town for All. So K-Town for All is Koreatown, for those of you that don't know. I think, yeah, they're right there. They're doing distro. People Struggle, SFV was offering evacuation rides, so there was some coordination around evacuation rides for people, because again, while LA is a car city, we are not. This is a fucking this is a so polarized place in terms of access and resources. Not everyone has cars. Yes, people shit on our public transit, but a lot of people fucking use our public transit. Working class people use our public transit. They can't just fucking leave, you know? And so that was one of the things that was organized. All Power Books is a distro center, you know, a friend of the show here, right? Like Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly is really connected to them. They do a gang of work. I don't see Midnight on here, but Midnight Books is also comrade. Shout out to the homie, you know, over there at Midnight in Huntington Park. They're doing hygiene kits, right? J-Town actually cooking hot foods, not for people, right? FTSLA, I'm not seeing, I don't know who FTSLA is right now off the top of my head, but these are some of the people I can tell you will never hear about outside of LA. Most people in LA don't know these folks. Etna Street Solidarity been walking through the streets of Hollywood helping folks evacuate, right? Like everyone is doing something. I think FTSLA is in Skid Row. Maybe but these are people, right, that are saying on these that are saying these are groups, these are formations, these are anarchists, these are communists, these are Maoists, these are all kinds of people that are coming together, and just people, right, like that are coming together to help, that want to change the world or want to take the world, whatever it may be, right? And they're out moving and doing stuff. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize to people, when these press conferences that end up going viral start spreading on the internet and they start bringing up officials from shit like Red Cross or the World Kitchen, yes, of course, I'm sure they're doing some things that are useful, but it's not just these big orgs, right? It's the people, right? And I think that that's really important to overemphasize, that shit starts with stuff like this. These are not like professional people. These are not, I don't know all these folks, right? I know some people from all these different formations, but like, I don't think these are people that are getting, that have 501c3s. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think these are people that are waiting on grant responses right now in January or deployments, right? These are people that know that they want a revolutionary change, however that may look. And right now they're meeting the moment, right? And I think that it's important for this not to get forgotten. That's really why I reached out to Jared, because I know that, like, you know, these are like, we're preaching to the choir here, right? But the choir gets bigger outside of our city. And the last thing I'll say to Jared's point about Philadelphia and the winds, don't think that this shit ain't coming for you. You know, like, that's something that everybody got to fucking understand. You ain't going to outrun capitalism, right? You ain't outrunning capitalism, and you ain't fucking outrunning climate change. Colorado, your ass is next. You know, like Wyoming, all those places, like, they're going to come. Who knows what it'll look like? If you ask them people in fucking Asheville and Western North Carolina, you know, like fucking in November, about floods and hurricanes, they would have told you, I don't give a fuck about all that. And then what happened? Right? And so right now, you know, like, there has been this like thing about the rich being impacted, right? And we kind of have that attitude here in the South too, because we always forgotten and shit. So that needs to be fucking like attended to. I'm seeing a need there to be like, yeah, man, I get you. Those Palisades people ain't us. But guess what? Them Palisades people, we clean their houses. Who the fuck's gonna pay your income when we get evicted here? We about to have a mass unhoused crisis that's about to explode more in 2025 because of this shit in this city. The police state is expanding and solidifying and will do anything possible to seize this opportunity. The insurance companies right now are salivating at what's going to happen. And you got officials telling people, let's liberalize the market. We're going to make some regulations to insurance companies to make sure there's competition. Like, this shit is crazy to me, to see this shit live, you know? And as an academic that be doing this shit, that has studied this in different sites and all these different things, like, I have this language because it's just natural, right? This is my career. But to see it happening live in my city in this overt way is like, yo, what the fuck? We really got to get active. We really got to get clear. Those of us that have been doing this for a long time, we got to be kind. We got to help. We got to be impassioned, and we got to be persistent and dogged. And then if anybody that knows me and my people out here, like, that's all the fuck we are, is dogged, right? Like, we're not going to stop. And that's what I feel like really empowered. And I want people to understand, like, help us out so we could keep fighting. Because we're going to keep fighting whether people help us out or not. We're going to keep struggling. We're going to keep serving the people. You know, help us out. You know, help the people out. When you see them GoFundMe, out to Dina. The Black history that was destroyed, Black LA history.
Yes.
I can't tell you.
Yes, that.
You know, so Yeah, it's a lot. Sorry, I usually get intense, but this shit is, I mean, you can smell it. I'm
No,
20
yeah.
something miles away from that shit. I could smell it inside my house that has been closed for 3 days. So
Yeah, and it's terrible. I have asthma. Another aspect, like I tell people, these are the situations where you see all the like fucked up systematic oppressions come to head. Like, I have asthma. I have the privilege of having like a network. Somebody found me an inhaler because when I left, I just didn't think to grab it, like didn't think to check if it was in my bag. And but inhalers are fucking expensive. And it's just this like there's people who have asthma who cannot like just go, and insurance companies, you can only get one per month. It's just this like, so there's so many issues that are coming up. And what I keep telling people is this like, yeah, there's definitely a difference between some folks in Pacific Palisades and even some areas of Altadena on the east side is more wealthy. On the west side it's more BIPOC, more working class folks. And so it's just like people need to remember, it's just this like, yeah, these are all like, it's just this like the fire is going to affect us all, but it's going to affect us differently, and we need to have an understanding of how systematic oppression shows its ugly face, like in all of these different levels. From like, yes, there's people whose house burnt down, and then there's people whose house or their apartment burnt down, and they have chronic health issues, and they've got no money. It's just this like, and let me tell you, in the last couple days, I figured out how like expensive this shit is. Like, I was just like, I was having to buy like pet supplies. I left everything. Like, I have what is in my trunk of my car, and it was just like, that shit's expensive. I went to Target yesterday. I think I spent like almost $200 just on like really basic things, and I didn't even get everything. I know a lot of people who don't have that, and it's just like, and we need to talk about that. But Alex is right. It's just like, this is going to happen to you at some point. If you were privileged enough that it has not happened, like, there's no way. I was telling Jay earlier, like, the fact that this came down so far into residentials is astonishing. Like, I really want people to grasp that it's not just up in the hills. It's just this like, it's not just like the Pacific Palisades anymore or Malibu. Like, this came so far down into like hitting Pasadena. That, I mean, it wiped out almost 80. I think the number is like 80%, 70, 80% of Altadena so far. It's probably going to be more because the fires are still, there's still embers burning in some places. But it's like, that's an incredible thing to really think about, and think about like, we have to come together, because this is going to affect. I'm surprised that it stopped. It's just this like, and we had the Hollywood fire, I think, last night. We had little fires popping up in places like Highland Park. I mean, like we need to get over our bullshit, and we need to like, talk to each other, and we need to like come through for each other and start showing up.
the elders are sundowning at the convention center. People don't know what to do with that, and they're saying that people are having a hard time like getting volunteers to help elderly folks. That's about fucking care. That's about capitalism, right? Like, that's about the logics of capitalism that says these people are going to be put out to pasture, and we are not here for you. We cannot help you. And now those people that were in nursing homes, those images, some of them folks are sundowning in these evacuation centers by themselves in corners, right? Like, and again, to Mel's point, not to shit on anyone, but it's hard to get up over there right now, right? It's hard to like go and support. And it's also like, this is new for a lot of people, like, I'll say this, like, to connect to some other shit, like, because it's really important. The Palestinian solidarity encampments, you saw a lot of people learn a lot of shit. And you saw what stressors that brings on people, like, you're actively doing and learning at the same time under intensified surveillance in the midst of a genocide, right? All of that shit is happening simultaneously, and you're working through contradictions, tensions, interpersonal stuff, and it gets real like tense. That's gonna happen right now, right? But all them kids that were traumatized and fucking brutalized and shit, those kids right now, I can imagine, right? And Mel probably could say this a lot better than me, are frozen in panic to try to go help, because they're talking about criminalizing people right now. They learned a lot of skills right now that could be very useful at the Pasadena Convention Center. But what we're seeing is that the Red Cross is being like, hands off. They've taken over that operation, supposedly. I don't know. That was 2 days ago. I don't know what's going on now. I haven't caught up today. Or yesterday, I don't even know, as Mel said, right? Pan Pacific Park on the west side, right? Like, when that fire, the Sunset Fire happened, right? Pan Pacific Park, developed, and there was very little order. I was like, damn, them kids from UCLA could come over here and like set that shit up with the quickness. They did it once, but people are scared, right? The DA was over here threatening people, right, and like putting up more discourse around like scams for GoFundMe, and then talking about the looters and da 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 and all this shit. And I was like, bro, the wind events don't end until right now, and then Monday we have more.
Mm-hmm.
And these fires are like, I think the Eaton fire is at 6% as of this morning contained. And that could retract. I don't know how fucking fireworks either. Like, does the number go back fucking down? Does it re-expand? Like, what's the formula and shit, you know? But like tonight, what if that shit expands? Does that 6% go to 3% after, you know? And like, that's the shit. And these fools are systematically fucking sending false alarms. Last night at 2 a.m., there was a fucking second false alarm that was sent out at 2 a.m. to the entire county. And then these fools on the press conference are talking about like, talking in circles about the management systems and like talking to people like we're stupid as his voice is tremoring because being pressed by the media. And they're like, oh, those are right-wing talking points. I don't give a fuck what talking points is. Like, we can align right now and focus on our enemy. Going back to something that Dylan just said, Dylan Rodriguez, right? Like in our talk, when we did our book presentation, our book launch with Kim Wilson, right? Like the editor of We Grow the World Together. You know, he said, focus on your enemies. Learn who your enemies are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, right now, you know, I could tell y'all from history, revolutionary upheavals, real ones that threaten like the state, happen when there's coalitions, however fraught they are, with the middling class and the class traders that are wealthy. Right now, shit on them Palisades people, all of them as a whole, I don't know if that's helpful. You can shit on the leadership, but like some of them people are pissed and they're gonna have to contend with these insurance companies. You got to socialize this fucking anger and rage against the state and direct it in the proper direction. Because the state is telling you to fucking look out for arson suspects. You know, as the homies from the People's City Council here in LA, who people may know, right, said, the looting is coming from inside City Hall. It ain't coming from us. You know, and fuck, give somebody a melted PS5. What the fuck they gonna do? They ain't gonna get no money off of that shit. You know, like everything is gone. Like people don't understand. There's not shit to go up there. I mean, maybe the weapons, right? Like, which I think is the one thing that they're talking about. But I don't know, man. It's just it's a lot of shit, you know, and it puts targets on the backs of a lot of people in this city that always have had targets on their back. I guess it doesn't even put targets on our back. It expands them.
Well, and the arson suspects, like, hello, like the city, the state, like, you know, it's just like they knew this wind event was happening. Even I don't know, I'm not a meteorologist, but I was hearing about it days before. They could have mobilized, and also the power company. The power company, you know, it's just this like I know it hasn't been proven, but you know, it's just this like those towers, you know, like ignited, and the power should have been turned off. The power should have been turned off, and you know, how many fires and fucking California have we had that have not been at fault of a power company? You know, it's just this like, and we have to also arson suspect, like the biggest arson suspects are our city, like you know, like leader, quote unquote leaders, and the monopolized power companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if we've touched on this, but the water situation too. I mean, there's it's been a situation in LA for a number of years that the Colorado River, right, is basically drying up, and I think that's the right one, right? I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know.
No, I think it's the lakes up in like Nevada and Arizona and shit, and the Colorado River, like so all these different like water sources, right? Like man, there's some folks that I've read that do a lot of work on water, but right now I'm fucking blanking and shit. I know City of Course talks about the water stuff and all these other things, but
I'd just say that you know, even on the bourgeois, on the pig media, as my friend Brooke would say, you know, they're talking about, you know, like fire hydrants that don't have water basically, or don't have the water pressure essentially to be able to use. And I mean, in some sense, that's like fires on this scale require more than just like a lot of water, you know, but nonetheless, that is one of the things that you can do is you can dampen houses, dampen areas, and all of this. And um, they're not able to do that. And so just again, another thing that is fueled by climate change, which, as we know, is a result of capitalist expansion all over the place. And yeah, so anyway, I just didn't know if either of you had heard anything on that front.
Well, drinking water, like the stores are wiped out, Jay, like wiped out. It's just like you'd have to drive. And again, not everybody has access to vehicles. Not everybody has money to go buy drinking water. It's just like Altadena, like, it's just like people are out of drinking water. Certain cities, certain parts of the cities, they're telling you to boil your water. Like, even just drinking water, like, it's just like, and that, like, people need to really sit with, like, what are we going to do when we don't have drinking water? And parts of the city are experiencing that right now. And you go to any store, they're wiped out.
Yep.
Yeah, I read on. I'm seeing some folks in the chat who have some commentary. Tony, first of all, shout out Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Thanks for becoming a member. I know y'all know Tony too.
Yes.
Tony is a firefighter,
Yes.
not in LA, but yeah, and said that the fire departments, for the most part, do not stay connected to hydrants during intense wind-driven wildfires. Yeah, and so, anyways, yeah, it it is just, and then I'll share this comment. I won't read it out loud because I don't want to add to our chance of getting, YouTube doesn't like it when we curse too much, but anyway, that you can do it. But all right.
Yeah, I agree
What
with
else?
that
What
comment.
else? Other people talk about too the smoke, which you both have mentioned, and then Tony mentioned this too, of treating people with respiratory emergencies in San Diego, and in north of San Diego, where people are traveling down. And that's the thing too, is like, I know, Alex, you talked about smelling it in your house and all of that, and that's very real when you're near one. But I also say, like, a couple summers ago, we were smelling smoke in the Philly area, and it was from fires in Oregon and Canada. And so, like, because of the way that the smoke travels across the jet stream and all of that, like, the smoke can impact people all over the place. Um, Tony also recommended this book for folks. I'm interested in this: Smoke Screen: Debunking Wildfire Myths to Save Our Forests and Our Climate by Chad D. Hansen. Not familiar, but that sounds really interesting. So yeah, anything else that you all want to say? I can pull up those. I'll pull up those mutual aid funds again. And then also, again, just want to remind folks, especially if you tuned in late, that in the show description, Mel had a whole set of resources. So if anybody is in the LA area and is, in need of resources, or knows people in need of resources, there's a lot of places that you can, connect them with, which is great.
Yeah, I think, like, I think it's also important for people to just know, going on Alex's point of being scared, it's just like, it's just like, there's very real fear with police, and now we're having to deal with police. Like, I drove up yesterday, or yeah, it was yesterday, and like, I was trying to just, people don't remember that people have trauma. Like, this is like in the body. It's intense. Like, it's intense not to, like, know, and or to just know, and just, like, it's just like, you're dealing with all the, like, physical, like, implications of breathing in all the smoke. You don't have anything. You're trying to go see if you can salvage anything. And the police, like, they're fucking scary, and they're not being kind. I think I was telling you, Jay, earlier, I was just like one of the police officers was like, well, this is like, too bad. You're not getting past me. And it's like, you don't have to be a jerk. Like, you don't have to be like, we are like, the people trying to come see their homes, they're not trying to be jerks. They're trying to see, like, what can I salvage? Like, it's just like, they're desperate. They're traumatized. We're all traumatized. And yet we have to deal. And I'm not saying, not all officers. I know some people are going to say that's not every police officer, but it's a lot of them. And that's just another component. And people are afraid. Like, you talk back to police, what's going to happen? Again, depending also on your skin color. And then, like yesterday, there was a lot of warnings of, like, ice being in Pasadena and Altadena. And again, I don't know, have that confirmed, but it's one of those things that I think, even if it's not true, it's like, it brings up all of the fears of, like, why people aren't going to go out and, like, get aid and get resources, because it's scary. And it's just like, and some people are like, oh, if I go and I try to get X, Y, and Z resource, am I going to run into ICE? Right. And it's just this like, there are documented people who said that they saw ICE at some of the grocery stores. And so we're like, okay, your people are just like gonna like, you know, like retreat. And this is why we have to be safe havens for each other.
100%, 100%. You know, and to the ICE raids thing, right? Like the fact that our people know that it could be a reality, right?
Yes,
Like that you could be a
exactly.
reality, because policing power in LA is so tremendous, right? Like we're so hyper policed here, you know, like everywhere really in the country. But like I know that people, when they come to LA and really see and experience like the police and what it looks like and the culture of policing that we have here, it's you know, it's distinct, you know, like these are like the warrior cops, and like this is Hollywood, so there's an investment in all of that, right? Like I mean, I'm sure people are familiar with that history who listen to the show, right? I'll share this, you know, like I, you know, have been fortunate to stand, to walk, to fight, to struggle along a lot of different families, you know, who have lost their loved ones to police terror, you know, and police violence. And I think 2 years ago, there was the first annual Black History Month parade after the pandemic halt, right? So we went to march with the families of Takar Smith, who was killed at the beginning of 2023, right? And the families of, if y'all remember, the young man, and it's unfortunate, right? I think it's Anthony something, but the young man who was killed in Huntington Park, who didn't have his legs, who was shot by the cops, fleeing from his wheelchair on video by Black and brown cops. Those families, and we marched up those streets, those main streets that they're talking about, Lake or Fair Oaks or whatever. You know, I don't know. Again, y'all know I be south of the 10 and shit, so like I don't be knowing the streets up there, but you know what I'm saying? Like I know Fair Oaks, I know Lake, I know those streets, and we walked them, and you know, like it just, to see the depths and being able to meet some of, you know, briefly, right? Like some of the Black civic leaders of this area, you know, like, and them talking to us, you know, as our little formation and people, you know, who were there marching and walking and, you know, shaking hands, you know, and like talking with people who were trying to change their city, you know, like that was 2 years ago, you know, like, and they have big visions of like how to reincorporate Black folks into the city and how to, you know, how to improve situations and educational access for kids, you know, and parks and all the different things that civic leaders do and advocate for, right? I don't know if them people are still around now. I don't know if their homes are around, if their centers, if they're, you know, all the different things, the supplies, you know, for after school programs, you know, like for summer programs, you know, for, you know, food, like what kinds of things burned, you know, what kinds of activities, you know, like what kinds of things. And then, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you know, like I want to shout out one of my former students, Carlos Somoza, whose family lost their home in the fire, you know, and like this is just one story of many, you know, but like this is a personal one. And so, you know, just reading their GoFundMe, you have, you know, their GoFundMes and other GoFundMes are like, we fought real hard to keep this house. You know, people working 2 to 3 jobs to fucking not lose this shit to the bank. You know, people that invested everything into their homes, right? And we know that Black and brown people, right? Like our investments are hyper focused on our home as our retirement plans, our college student plans, is everything, because we won't have access to that shit, and that shit is inaccessible. So those of us that crawl up to the middle class, right, and get our little home, right, like I know this is a contentious conversation for some folks, right, like because they don't live in fucking reality, but it becomes hard, right, like, and so when you are seeing the devastation on these Black folks' faces on these clips that are going viral, it's the reality that you're not just losing that home and the material stuff that's in there. It's what that homes means in the long haul, right? What that has meant historically to lift some people up a little bit, right? Like to build possibilities and futures for people, right? Because unfortunately, that's what it takes in a capitalist society, right? Them people, you lose everything. You know, like it's, you losing futures. You're not just using the past, you know, like, or your future is becoming even more hamstrung, you know, and that shit is really painful. You know, that shit is really painful. So this student, you know, they lost their home, and then there's this powerful video and of him walking through it, you know, and my partner being a therapist, it's like I can't imagine walking through seeing the places that you played in as a kid, that you cried at, that maybe, you know, like I'm thinking my own fucking memories, like in houses that I lived in South Central, right? Like I would say, you know, y'all could see some scars on my forehead, you know, where a battery was thrown at your face at, you know, and you beat the shit out of your cousin at because he fucking threw it. All that's gone. All that's gone, you know, like there was ashes flying in my neighborhood, and I was like, those are all people's memories.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That shit is deep, bro.
It's
That's what.
true. Oh, go ahead, Mel.
No, I was just saying. I was like, what I've been telling people is like, yeah, it's just like things are just things, and people. Yes, of course, I'm grateful I'm out alive and that my pets are alive. But things, it's just like are hard in a capitalist world to acquire, and it's just like it. I tell people it's like the archive of my life is gone.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So my mother-in-law's house, which my wife and her sister and a bunch of family members grew up in North Philly, is a row home, and a couple of winters ago, the entire block burned down. The whole and that's it's what happens in cities like Philadelphia where you have row homes, and so everybody's connected. So it's like one house goes up, like by the time it gets put out, the whole block basically is taken out. And I can't remember what I asked her about the other day. Oh, I know what it was. She was talking about something that she sang in elementary school or whatever, and I'm like, I know there's a video of that. Where's the video? And she's like, it's gone, like it's lost in the fire. And in my mind, I didn't even, of course I should have been like, dumb question. I was here when the fire happened. But you forget sometimes if you haven't personally been through it too, of yeah, that devastation of that archive and that kind of stuff that just goes, and what
It's
a what
got
a massive loss that is.
it's got such a huge impact. I mean, like some people who follow me and who know me, like I've shared, I have a lot of loss in my family. One of my brothers was murdered, and like I couldn't get his clothes that I still have, and like that's just gonna be with me. Like the last things that I had of him, I couldn't get to. Like
Yeah.
he already left the world in a violent way, and like the last pieces of things that I had from him are gone.
Oh, that's devastating, Mel. I'm so sorry. I really am. Um, I do want to share. So this one I had on the screen a little bit earlier, just for folks' context of who this is. This is Dindi Katanga, and I'm sure many other folks, but they run this mutual aid group, which predominantly works with unhoused people in
Mm.
is it the Skid Row area, Alex? I'm not totally sure where
Nah,
they.
Palms is the west side, so like Marina Del
Okay.
Rey, it's more like a coastal area. But yeah, that's where you saw a lot of the unhoused encampments that became really like lightning rods for political fucking fodder and shit during the pandemic. It was right there.
Yeah, well, anyways, I just wanted to shout out because I know Dindy is always doing amazing mutual aid work, and this is another place that you can contribute to, knowing that that work will, reach people that are in need, and they talk a little bit about the work that they're doing right now, but distributing masks, meals, clothing, blankets, and wound care. And this is their Instagram account. They have a link tree on their Instagram that you can connect with to give them a donation. So that's another group that you can definitely support. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Things to do, like in case, like, because like, also I don't want to just, I want to give as much as one can, right? Schools were closed. Working class people's jobs were not. Poor
Yes.
people's jobs are not closed. So one of the things that we thought we were gonna do, right? Like, and we did yesterday. One of the kids came and stayed over, and we had a thing. So we're in communication with our classroom, right? Like, and again, we're not in the directly impacted area, right? But the air quality is bad, and so we start to see with our parents, so like co-organize with your classroom, right? And those learning management systems, if there's people that need help and can trust, you could do that beforehand, right? And say like, hey, I stay home, I can take care of kids one day, like, let's rotate that. This is how you begin to build, right? Like the foundation for revolutionary change, like you see the needs of the people and you meet them, right? And you do that consistently as much as I'm so sorry. I'm seeing these chats. It's just terrible. And the family lost an urn in that fire that I was mentioning too. So Mel, my heart's with you. Like, and I know, like, how to grief tend, and you'll do it in community. We got your back. So like, we're there. And to meet that grief again over and over, and to carry it, right? Like, if we don't process that shit, all that weight is gonna fucking
Mm-hmm.
crush us, and we ain't never
Mm-hmm.
gonna do shit. So again, right, like, I don't know how people have thought of like the work that know me or what we do with my partner. We run these grief groups, and we run the parenting. Like, we're doing the parenting stuff, and we do care work and all. We talk about care, and we're talking about gardening, right? Like, that's just to show what the world can be, what it should be, right? And people are impacted by that a lot, directly. So like, if people have critiques of that stuff, right, like, I get it, like, people critique all they want, like, but understand that there is a principle that is guiding these things, right? Like, that is the hope and the work towards a revolutionary upheaval for another society, where this kind of shit, even if it continues, that we can meet it in different ways that doesn't further, right, like a polarized society and abandon the wretched, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just want to give a shout out to because also I owe Kim Wilson for folks who don't know. So I was, before this podcast started, I was the producer of Beyond Prisons for about a year, and Kim Wilson and Brian Nam Sonnenstein were the co-hosts of that podcast. And actually, I think they both do stuff with it occasionally at this point. But Kim Wilson and then Maya Schwenoir, who many people may know from Truth Out, edited this book, We Grow the World Together, that Alex has mentioned a couple times, that he and his partner Susie are a part of, as well as a bunch of other, cool folks. It's a collection. And it's one of the conversations that I haven't gotten to yet, partly because I'm sitting here doing conversation on my dining room table today because of my basement studio being destroyed itself. So I don't know. Oh, you didn't know that, Alex. But so anyway, I'll have construction in my house next week to fix that. But that's why I haven't been doing as many conversations over the last couple months. But yeah, so anyway, that at some point we will do a discussion more directly about that book, but I did want to shout that out and point people towards that, since it did come up in the conversation. Yeah. All right, anything else that either of you want to share?
I just want to remind people, and one is that all of these tragedies are linked, from Gaza to climate change to, and I really want people to remember that. I don't think that's, and to all the folks who are watching or will see it, I don't think it's news to them, but I so much of the progress that is being made to contain the fires is labor that's being done by, like, prisoners, incarcerated folks who are doing, like, and like, just basically like slave labor. And we can't forget that either, because that has like a huge impact. Like, this is how we're trying to contain the fire. And that's a really great, like, injustice and oppression and abuse. um and the grief part, like, I'm telling everybody, like, let yourself grieve. I'm being very real. There's this whole thing about therapists should be really neutral. All my clients know what's happened. Like, I'm letting people know, like, let yourself grieve, let yourself feel that, let yourself cry, let yourself be angry, like, let yourself have those feelings, give yourself the permission, release yourself from, like, individualism and professionalism and capitalism, give yourself the permission to be a human being. And to everybody, is just like, now's the time to, like, employ revolutionary radical love, and make that like a daily practice.
Yeah, and make it active, right? Like, yeah, daily
Yeah.
practice, action. Get active, and yeah, my heart is with everybody here. Like, I definitely am a person, like, I don't know what it comes off of is on these fucking things that people don't know me as, but like, I am a person that has a great amount of love and care and kindness, and I extend and I build bridges with people, and I show up for people. We show up for people, because You have to. I mean, like you have to in this world, because I took a lot of the stuff that I read when I was 16, 17, 18, thank you, brother Hardy, up in the chat, right? Like there's never enough books, or there's never too many books, like, so I took all that stuff serious. I didn't read it. I wasn't on social media back in 1999 and 2000. I wasn't posting like, the books that I bought and didn't read, like I was reading those shits, I was reading plays, I was reading and thinking like, how can I apply this to my reality? And my whole life has been dedicated to that, and I will continue to do that. And so right now, there is a moment right now. There's always these aperturas, these openings, these fissures right now. And there's fissures in the city, and the state is terrified. Their voices are trembling. They are angry at journalists who are critiquing them, and like, and making incisive questions happen. And the reason that they are betraying, I think, their own jobs and the institutions is because they live up in them houses too, or they know that their shit could be next. So think about that as you're seeing all of this, and as we're, like, manufactured, or like how we're like guided towards just rage baiting and shit, right? Think about like how that is like further separating people. And anything that separates us right now is not what we need right now, right? We need clarity, which is not division. You know what I'm saying? So filter through the bullshit, show up with love, like, and get busy, like, and know that this is forever. If you haven't started until right now, know that this is forever, or should be, until we win. And then after that, some other shit, but we're gonna win.
Yes, we are.
Mm.
And I just want to say, like, shout out to all of the folks, all the mutual aid folks. Shout out to everybody, like, because we've got us, community's got us. And, like, that gives me so much hope. And, everybody who's been affected and is in the same situation, like, we'll be okay because we've got each other. We'll be okay.
All right. Thank you both for taking this time today. I know that there's so much going on where you are, and I appreciate you both taking the time to share with our audience and connect with folks. And yeah, Mel, just our heart totally goes out to you. And yeah, so anyway, thank you
Thank you
both.
so much.